Hello, everyone. So it looks like there was mass escalations in Ukraine, in Poland overnight, whereby, and look, guys, when I'm at the time of making this video, there's some conflicting information. So I'm just going to give you what I believe is correct and what's been reported from most mainstream. I'm then going to give you guys my speculation on what I think is happening and why, and what I think is going to happen in the future. But before we get on to that, ladies and gentlemen, can you make sure you hit those buttons down below? Just a little tap of your finger and share my stuff on your socials. So overnight then on the 10th of September, there was another massive airstrike on Ukraine. As I understand it, there was 400 drones and a number of ballistic missiles. Now, some of those drones encroached onto Polish airspace. The Polish Air Force have been scrambled and they've shot down those drones. Now, excuse me. As a result of this, Poland have invoked Article 4. Now, I'm going to briefly explain, without using too much technical wording, why Article 4 is actually more potent than Article 5. So we'll start with Article 5. And look, guys, I've done many videos talking about Article 5, why it's not worth the paper it's written on. So Article 5, a NATO Article 5 clearly states that an attack on one member state is deemed an attack on all member states. That's fine. And I used to argue about this with some really high, you would know them, household name politicians. And I used to say, mate, that's not what it actually says. Have you read the whole thing? Oh, yes, but it... All right, so... yes, it does say that, but if you read the whole of Article 5, at the bottom, what it actually says is the NATO Security Council will convene and take whatever action necessary to restore peace and stability to that region. Now, listen, riddle me this, riddle me that, Batman. If there is a drone strike on a small location in Poland and the Russians, just speculatively now, guys, and it was the Russians or the Belarus, whoever, doesn't really matter, country X, and then country X said, yeah, we've taken out that airfield because we believe you're flying offensive missions from your airfield that are attacking our country. The attack's over. There's security and there's stability in that region. So what can you take from Article 5 for a response? Nothing. You can't do anything. And I've said all along, the NATO Article 5 is not it's not worth the paper it's written on. NATO Article 4, however, that's more potent. And what NATO Article 4 is, basically in layman's terms, NATO Article 4 is when you feel a threat and you say, right, listen, I feel I'm in threat. I'm going to invoke Article 4. I want all the NATO guys to get around one table and we're going to talk about what my measured response can be if I'm attacked in such a method. Now, once they've agreed on that, that becomes, that is NATO approved then. So if, for example, and I'm not saying this is happening, I'm speculating now. If, for example, when the NATO Chiefs Council meet or whoever they are, the Polish say, right, listen, what we're going to do, if we see those drones heading towards our airspace, we are going to intercept them in Ukrainian airspace before they actually get into Polish airspace. That would give us the ability to stop them even coming into Polish airspace. Little by little, what we could see then is the capacity where you now have, and I've said this in other videos, guys, go check it out. You guys could have this scenario now where you're having Polish F-16s leaving on defensive sorties over Ukraine. Now, there's no difference in radar signature with a Polish F-16 and a Ukrainian F-16. Absolutely zero. Do you know why? Because they're F-16s. So the Russians wouldn't be able to tell whether that was a Polish F-16 leaving on a defensive sortie or a Ukrainian F-16 being flown from Poland on a offensive sortie, launching Storm Shadow, Scalp, Taurus, whatever cruise missiles they're going to use. So that's the direction of travel that we could see. Also, I'm looking at Belarus, and it's the elephant in the room right now. So the Belarusians, Zelensky came out and he said that at least two of the, certainly at the time of making this video, at least two of these drones were entered through Belarusian airspace. Now, if that is the case, and drones or missiles are being launched from Belarus, that would give NATO Article 4 would give the framework for the Polish to use preemptive strikes on potential launch pads, potential launch sites in Belarus. Now, I'm just going to go quickly, guys, and give you guys an update from the front line in Ukraine. So let me share this screen with you a second. That one. So here we have the front line on, in fact, let me, so we have the front line in Ukraine. I'm going to zoom in now. Obviously, the red denotes Russian troops in occupied Ukraine, and obviously the not red denotes not Russian troops. Now, this was what the front line looked like on the 8th of the 1st of last month, so just over a month ago. What I'm going to do, I am going to skip forwards, and every time I click the screen, that's going to denote 1 day. And what I want you guys to look at is how much ground the Russians are taking, and then look at how much ground the Ukrainians are taking back. And you'll see it's one-sided, as it's always been. So just flicking forwards now, guys, little by little, the Russians are pushing forwards day by day. They're moving closer, and it's not much, but it is a constant push and a constant drive. Now, you've got to let the ground dictate your movement. So when everybody's talking about a peace deal and peace negotiations and a ceasefire, there's nothing there, guys. There's nothing there on the ground to have a ceasefire behind. So if we just zoom in, this area, it's just open fields. It's open fields and rolling countryside. There's nothing there to have a defensive line behind. A example of how you do it wrong is the Afghan-Pakistan border. It's called the Durant line, but we're not worried about that now. We're worried about Ukraine. So here is what I've always said. I don't see any likelihood of peace negotiations until the Russians at least make it to Dnipro, to the Dnipro, by the city of Dnipro. I would speculate that, and this is just my opinion, I think it's lots of mainstream pundits as well, that the Russians want to, in their initial phase, want to make it all the way up to the River Dnipro. And if you look, the River Dnipro really does bisect Ukraine almost 50-50. It runs all the way down here from like north of Kiev. You've got obviously you've got what's the word, Chernobyl up there. It runs all the way down and all the way to the Black Sea. So if the Russians managed to make it all the way up there, they would have that defensive line. Russia, Ukraine. It's very difficult to mount an attack over water, guys. Trust me, I've had to do it a few times in the military. It's slow, it's difficult, you're vulnerable, you just don't do it. So that's the situation on the ground in Ukraine. Now I want to jump back over real quick and give you guys a little update to what's been the significance of Poland and the significance of Belarus in this conflict. So let me share this with you again, Google Maps. So here you have, so you've got Ukraine here. You've got Poland, obviously. Where my cursor is here, that town there, I think that's where initial reports are that the drones landed in and around that area. So you've got Belarus here. Now, Belarus has this massive land border with Ukraine. Obviously, Belarus are allies of Russia, so Russia's allies of Belarus, so they're bros. At some point, I believe they're going to get involved in the war, but right now, it makes no sense for the Belarusians to get involved in the war, because if the Belarusians get involved in the war, they're fair game, and, you know, the Ukrainians can strike targets in Belarus, so can, you know, other people, I guess. But as we are right now, I think Putin and the Belarusians, they want to keep Belarus out of the war, because that gives the Russians the freedom of movement of all this location there. One of the key locations here, guys, that not many people talk about is this place called Brest, or don't laugh at that. Literally, that's the spelling there, guys, Brest. Now, Brest is a massive rail hub, and in the times of the Soviet Union, there was a planned rail hub that would link China to Europe, and Brest was the last place that got to. So it's a big rail network. Now, if you were going to invade Europe, a lot of your stuff would have to come from rail. So Brest is a key location in that. Now, also with let's look around the border here, because you've got to understand the geopolitical posturing. You know, Poland have the border with Ukraine. They have the border with Belarus. Also, this little bit here, which is key, I kind of should have showed you before. This area here, that I'm zooming in now, guys, Kaliningrad, that's Russian controlled. So then you have this little corridor here. It's about 80 kilometers, which is just flat open ground. It's called the Suwalki corridor, because that little town there, Suwalki. Now, what people are saying, is me included, that if this war starts, Russian tanks or Belarusian military could make a land grab from Belarus. No, I can't. well, anyway, I haven't got the ruler, but from Belarus to Kaliningrad, and that would give the Russians the access to the Baltic Sea, which would not be good for, I guess, the Baltic states. Also, the Baltic states that you've got here, guys, you've got Lithuania, you've got Latvia, you've got Estonia, all share a border with, well, not Lithuania, but they share a border with Belarus. Latvia share a border with Russia, so do Estonia, and then Finland shares this huge land border with, Russia, and so does Norway. You've got this little bit of an area there with Norway. So the significance of Belarus here, guys, can't be understated when we're talking about this conflict. And I don't think it's long before we see Polish F-16s being flown from somewhere in Poland, and they're doing defensive sorties around this west of Ukraine, east of Poland. And at that point, it's going to be very difficult to identify the link between, the link between offensive F-16s and defensive F-16s. And at that point, you could start seeing things like Orshnik coming down on air bases in Poland. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to keep this short because I know your time is valuable. That was as much as I know at this point, guys, okay? I will be live later on tonight at 8 or just before, where we'll be giving a real-time analysis of what's been happening. Don't forget to hit the buttons below if you've not done so already. I'm going to mag to grid. I'll get you guys another video later.